a nation once among the richest in Southeast Asia, home to a golden rock that seems to defy gravity and a 20-lane capital city built for no one. Yet today, its currency is so devalued it can almost be weighed like rice. Myanmar is a living paradox. Tucked between India and China, this tropical country spans roughly 676,000 square kilometers, about the size of Texas and Oklahoma combined, with around 55 million people. Similar to Spain, its landscapes stretch from misty mountain ranges to endless plains, dotted with thousands of temples glowing under the sunset. But what truly makes Myanmar fascinating isn't just its beauty. It's a crossroads of civilizations shaped by ancient trade, war, and faith. It's a land where Buddhism meets mystery, where time seems to pause between the sacred and the chaotic. Hidden here are spiritual treasures, like Bagan's Temple Sea and the legendary Golden Rock, flavors that surprise even seasoned travelers, and natural phenomena that science still struggles to explain. So what pulled Myanmar from being a rising star of Asia into one of its most fragile states? And could its deep-rooted culture and haunting beauty still hold the power to captivate anyone who dares to explore it? Geography of destiny and earthquakes. Wedged between two of the world's greatest civilizations, India and China, Myanmar sits in a position that seems both blessed and cursed. On one hand, it holds the gateway to the Indian Ocean, a priceless route for trade and influence across Asia. On the other, that very location has made it a tug-of-war zone for power, culture, and control for thousands of years. Throughout history, Myanmar was home to dozens of small kingdoms, each rising and falling within a century, never long enough to unite its more than 100 ethnic groups into lasting peace. Like a hinge holding two continents, the country has always been pulled in opposite directions, trying to stay balanced while great powers on either side push and pull. Even nature seems to test its resilience. Powerful earthquakes frequently shake this land, carving deep scars through cities and villages. The most devastating in recent memory struck with a magnitude of nearly 8, taking thousands of lives and costing the nation about 1/5 of its entire economy. Tremors were felt as far away as Bangkok, a reminder that Myanmar's instability isn't only political but also geological. If geography is destiny, then the question remains, can the people of Myanmar ever rewrite theirs? Instability and the falling kyat. $10 here can literally turn into a kilogram of cash. That's how far Myanmar's currency, the kyat, has collapsed. Since the military coup in 2021, the nation has been trapped in a spiral of chaos. Its lands divided among armed groups, millions displaced, and inflation soaring to the point where prices change faster than people can count. What used to be a paycheck now barely covers a week's worth of rice. In cities once full of promise, long lines form outside exchange stalls as people trade their devalued kyats for US dollars, clinging to them like life jackets in a sinking sea. The black market has become the only place where survival feels possible. For many, daily life is no longer about living but enduring. Young people who once dreamed of studying abroad or starting businesses now settle for plain rice sprinkled with salt, hoping tomorrow brings something better than hunger. Would you dare to travel long-term in a country where the value of everything, including hope, changes week by week? Mongla, the criminal black spot. Imagine a city where you can cross the border without showing a passport, where the police take orders not from the government, but from crime bosses. That city exists. It's called Mongla. Hidden deep in the Golden Triangle, Mongla has become the beating heart of transnational crime in Asia. Armed militias run the streets, controlling everything from online gambling and drug trafficking to wildlife smuggling and money laundering. Luxury resorts, gleaming hotels, and even power plants. Here are not what they seem. They're tools for washing billions of dollars in dirty money every year, a sum comparable to the GDP of some small nations. Drive south from China's Yunnan province, and you can enter Mongla freely, no visa or checkpoint required. It's a safe haven for criminals on the run and a nightmare for law enforcement. When laws no longer matter and the line between business and crime disappears, where can travelers find safety in a city ruled by the law of the jungle? The ghost capital of Naypyidaw. 20 lanes of highway stretch across the horizon, yet only one lonely car glides through the silence. This isn't a dream or a movie set. It's Myanmar's capital city, Naypyidaw. Built from scratch in the early 2000s, it was meant to be the nation's proud new center of power, a symbol of progress and control. But instead, it feels like the backdrop of a midday apocalypse. Spanning more than 7,000 square kilometers, nearly 6 times the size of New York City, Naypyidaw is meticulously planned. Neighborhoods are divided by profession, and each row of identical 4-story houses wears a different roof color: green for agriculture workers, brown for health officials. The streets are spotless, the buildings are ready, yet life itself seems missing. What should have been the busiest city in the country has turned into a monument of emptiness, a place where echoes outnumber footsteps. It's beautiful in its precision but haunting in its stillness, as if waiting for residents who will never arrive. Would you take a photo here to capture its surreal calm, or would the silence feel just a little too cold? From riches to ruins. Once at the top of Southeast Asia, Myanmar was a land of promise. In the 1960s, it was a leading rice exporter, rich in rubies and teak wood, and known for one of the highest literacy rates in the region. At that time, its income per person was twice that of Thailand and 3 times higher than Indonesia's. The world looked at Myanmar as a potential Asian success story. But that golden era faded fast. Decades of isolation, corruption, and internal conflict turned prosperity into poverty. Today, Myanmar's entire economy is only slightly larger than Cambodia's, even though its population is nearly 3 times bigger. On average, people earn just over $1,000 a year less than those in Timor-Leste, a country once considered far behind. For many, it's a painful paradox. The same rivers that once carried ships full of rice now mirror the quiet struggle of families trying to survive. Older generations still speak proudly of the days when Myanmar's name meant quality and abundance, but those memories feel like stories from another lifetime. With so many natural treasures still hidden in its soil, could the country ever rise again without first finding political stability? Everyday colors of culture. Here, skirts aren't just for women, they're for everyone. In Myanmar, the longyi is the national outfit worn by both men and women. Men tie it in front, women knot it at the side, and nearly everyone wears one daily. It's simple, airy, and surprisingly practical under the tropical Sunday. In a world chasing modern fashion, this timeless cloth still wins for comfort and pride. Walk through the streets, and another color jumps out: the deep red stains of betel nut. People chew it everywhere, from busy markets to quiet villages, leaving splashes of crimson on sidewalks and walls. The city becomes an open-air gallery of red dots, each one a mark of daily life, both charming and shocking to newcomers. Mealtime traditions are just as unique. Most people eat only 2 main meals a day, one around 9 in the morning and another near 5 in the evening. Rice and fish are essentials, always eaten with the right hand only, since the left hand is considered unclean. And if you hear a woman puckering her lips and making 3 quick chut sounds, don't mistake it for flirting. She's just calling for another cup of beer, usually served in a teacup. It's a lifestyle that's simple, joyful, and a bit unpredictable for outsiders. Would you find it endearing or a little hard to get used to? The beauty code of Myanmar. Sunscreen made from wood? In Myanmar, that's not a strange idea. It's a centuries-old tradition. Walk down any street, and you'll see women, children, and even some men with soft beige patterns brushed across their cheeks. That's thanaka, a natural cosmetic made by grinding the bark of special trees into a fine paste, then applying it to the skin. Locals believe it protects against the sun, reduces acne, and keeps the skin smooth and cool. Preparing thanaka is almost a ritual. You take a small stone slab, sprinkle it with water, and grind the bark in gentle circles until it turns creamy. The scent is earthy and fresh, like rain on wood. To many, it's not just skincare, it's heritage passed from mother to daughter, an everyday link between the modern world and ancient wisdom. But Myanmar's beauty story has a darker past too. Among ethnic groups like the Yai and Chin, women once tattooed their faces, not for fashion but for protection. Legend says a lustful king would send men to capture beautiful women for his palace, so families began tattooing their daughters to make them less desirable. Over time, this act of defiance turned into a symbol of identity and courage. The process was painful, using thorns and ink made from charcoal and tree resin, and though now banned, the last traces remain on the faces of elderly women, a living echo of resilience. It's as if a river of tradition still flows across every face here, marking both pride and survival. Would you try thanaka when you visit Myanmar? The sacred wonder of the Golden Rock. A single strand of hair is said to keep an enormous boulder from falling off a cliff. That's the legend behind Myanmar's most sacred site, the Golden Rock Pagoda, or Myanmar. Perched on the edge of a mountain more than 1,000 meters above sea level, this gleaming rock seems to defy gravity, balancing on a contact point barely wider than a coin. From afar, it looks as if one gentle breeze could send it crashing into the abyss below, yet it has stood firm for over 2,000 years. According to Buddhist tradition, when the Buddha once visited this land, he gifted a strand of his hair to a hermit. The hermit later asked celestial beings to enshrine it inside a rock placed on a cliff so that faith itself would hold it steady. Since then, pilgrims have traveled from every corner of the country to witness this miracle of devotion and physics. Men are allowed to approach the rock directly, pressing thin sheets of gold leaf onto its surface as prayers for wealth and good fortune. Women, however, must stay behind an iron fence, bowing and offering flowers from a distance. The rules are strict, but the reverence is universal. At sunrise or sunset, when mist curls around the golden surface and the sky turns pink, the sight is almost otherworldly, so serene it gives you chills. The rock doesn't just balance on stone, it balances on belief. Can faith really hold up against gravity? Heritage and sacred caves. Over 2,000 temples rise from the dusty plains of Bagan, glowing gold and crimson as the sun sinks behind them. It's one of those rare places where time doesn't just pass, it lingers. Recognized by UNESCO in 2019, Bagan is not merely an archaeological site, it's a living museum under an open sky, where each stupa and pagoda tells a story of faith, art, and empire. From above, the landscape looks almost unreal, a sea of spires stretching to the horizon, each one catching the last light of day. Monks in crimson robes walk barefoot along ancient paths, and the air feels thick with devotion and history. Watching the sunset here feels like standing inside a painting that's been breathing for 1,000 years. Far to the south, another marvel hides within the earth, the Bagan Cave, often called the Cave of 10,000 Buddhas. Inside, every inch of wall and ceiling is covered with tiny images of the Buddha, carved or gilded centuries ago. Some are made of stone, others of clay or wood, and together they form an overwhelming tapestry of faith. Look closer, and you'll notice traces of Hindu artistry woven into the Buddhist imagery, a reflection of how Myanmar's spirit has always absorbed, blended, and transformed. Bagan and Bagan aren't just places to visit, they're conversations between gods, kings, and centuries. They remind you that Myanmar's soul is carved in stone, painted in light, and still whispering through the wind. If you stood there at dusk, with thousands of temples glowing around you, which one would you choose to watch the sun fall from? Nature and spiritual mysteries. A lake that seems to breathe, and Buddha statues that move on their own, these are not myths from a storybook, but real mysteries found in Myanmar. In the far north lies Indoji Lake, one of the largest freshwater lakes in Southeast Asia. On calm, windless days, the surface rises and falls in slow, rhythmic waves, as if the lake itself is alive. At its center floats the Mitsone Pagoda, a wooden shrine that drifts gently with the water, yet has stayed perfectly upright for centuries. Scientists have tried to explain it with theories about air pockets and underground structures, but none of the data fits. For the locals, it's simpler. They believe the lake has a sacred breath that protects the pagoda from ever sinking. Farther south, deep inside the hills of Shan State, another enigma awaits in the Pindaya Cave. Within its golden glow sit more than 8,000 Buddha statues. Yet monks tell stories of small statues that shift positions overnight. In 2007, when researchers photographed every statue for record-keeping, they returned 6 months later to find dozens in new places, some moved several meters away. Security cameras were installed, but each time the movement occurred, the footage mysteriously cut out. Standing inside the cave, surrounded by thousands of silent faces, it's hard not to feel something watching back. The air hums with a calm that borders on the supernatural. Here, science stops at the temple gate, and belief walks the rest of the way. So which side would you take, science or the sacred unknown? Flavors of Myanmar. The national breakfast of Myanmar isn't toast or cereal, it's mohinga, a steaming bowl of rice noodles swimming in a fragrant fish broth, topped with crispy fritters, boiled eggs, lemongrass, and garlic. It's the kind of dish that wakes you up not just with flavor, but with history. Once the meal of laborers and monks, mohinga has become the taste of the nation, a comfort food that unites everyone from the busiest cities to the smallest riverside towns. But Myanmar's cuisine doesn't stop there. Shan noodles, a specialty from the mountain regions, mix soft rice noodles with savory chicken or pork, crushed peanuts, and a squeeze of lime. The balance between the clear, sweet broth and the gentle tang of citrus makes it both soothing and addictive. Then there's lapet thok fermented tea leaf salad, crunchy, spicy, and slightly sour, often served as a symbol of hospitality. It's said that no real Burmese gathering is complete without a shared bowl of tea leaves. For the adventurous, the menu gets bolder. Fried beetle larvae crackle between your teeth with a nutty, buttery flavor, while raw duck blood, bright red and seasoned with herbs, is believed to carry strength and vitality. To Western visitors, these dishes might look extreme, but to locals, they're a celebration of resourcefulness and tradition. Every flavor here feels like a map of the country's DNA, rich, unexpected, and unforgettable. Some dishes invite comfort, others challenge your courage. So if you ever find yourself in a bustling Myanmar market, surrounded by sizzling pans and fragrant steam, which dish would you dare to try first? Cost, safety, and the swamp of Ramri. Living in Myanmar can be surprisingly affordable. A single person can get by on around $500 to $700 a month, covering rent, food, and transport. In central Yangon, a small apartment costs between $350 and $500, while suburban options drop closer to $200. Street food meals cost barely $1, taxis just a few more. It sounds like a traveler's dream until you realize that safety here often comes with its own hidden price tag. Traveling smart in Myanmar means being prepared. Roads in rural or mountain regions can vanish into dust or mud, and GPS signals often fade away. Always download offline maps, carry a paper backup, and share your route with your hotel before setting out. Bring thin disposable socks for temple visits, since you'll need to walk barefoot as a sign of respect. Pack a high-capacity power bank, a small flashlight, and at least 2 liters of bottled water. And most importantly, avoid conflict zones in Rakhine, Shan, and Kachin states where soldiers, rebels, and uncertainty all share the same roads. Because here, beauty and danger often travel together. Nowhere is that clearer than on Ramri Island, a real-life nightmare written in the mud. During World War II, over 1,000 Japanese soldiers tried to retreat across its 16-kilometer swamp. As night fell, they found themselves trapped by thick mud, bitten by mosquitoes and snakes, and then surrounded by hundreds of saltwater crocodiles, each nearly 7 meters long. By morning, only about 20 men survived. It remains the deadliest crocodile attack ever recorded. Myanmar can feel like a silk painting, breathtaking from afar, but with razor edges at its borders. So before you go, what would you pack to make sure your journey here stays beautiful, but never painful? Myanmar is a tightrope stretched between faith and fragility. The more it trembles, the brighter its golden temples seem to shine. It's a country that lives on contrasts, where beauty and hardship walk hand in hand, and where every crack in the pavement hides a story waiting to be told. So, tell me, which part surprised or fascinated you the most? The ghost capital with no traffic, the gravity-defying golden rock, or the unforgettable breakfast bowl of mohinga? In the next episode, we'll drift across Inle Lake, where fishermen row with their legs and entire villages float between the clouds. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you won't miss the adventures ahead.